Welcome to Retreat Affairs. This is your host Sasha Kaus. I'm super happy that you have found the podcast. If you're hearing this, you're listening to our free feed that will only feature partial episodes of the podcast. If you're interested in the full conversation and all content, you'll need to subscribe at retreataffairs.com. There, you will get access to the full recording and a private RSS feed that you can add to your favorite podcatcher. And you will be able to access other subscriber-only content. I never want money to be the reason why you can't listen to the podcast. So if you can't afford a membership, there's an option at retreataffairs.com to request a free account, and I grant 100% of those requests. No questions asked. Hey friends, welcome to the Retreat Affairs podcast. I'm your host, Sasha Kaus. My guest today is Jools Sampson. Jools is the founder and owner of Reclaim Yourself, yoga retreats in extraordinary places. You find Jools on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Reclaim Yourself. That's ReclaimYourself, and on her website reclaimyourself.co.uk. Jools has been organizing retreats all around the world and gathered an incredible amount of experience from hosting over 200 retreats within the last 15 years. But for Jools, it's not about the masses. She only runs around 10 retreats per year, but those are all very unique experiences. With Reclaim Yourself, she has specialized in creating yoga retreats in extraordinary places. Her retreats take you to Lapland, where you can stay in tree houses. You can go to Iceland and see the Aurora Borealis. You can have yoga and tea ceremonies in Japan, or you can do yoga in a yurt and sing with herders in Mongolia. There are many more adventures that you can go on with Jools, but from my own experience, I know that not only the places where Jools hosts her retreats are mind-blowing, she also teams up with great teachers that will take you on a deep inner journey. One of those teachers is Emma Henry. Emma is a senior Jivamukti yoga teacher, and we met when I attended my yoga teacher training with Jivamukti back in 2013. Emma introduced me to Jools about 5 years ago. Jools was in the last steps of preparing the first ever yoga retreat in Mongolia. For the retreat in Mongolia, Jools and Emma were looking for someone who could shoot a video and like to travel. To me, that sounded like a perfect assignment. I was immediately hooked. I had the privilege to go with them on an incredible trip to one of the most remote places in the world. You'll find a link to that video on the Retreat Affairs website in the show notes for this episode. Have a look and you get an idea of the experience we had going to Mongolia. When I decided to start the Retreat Affairs podcast, I knew that I wanted to talk to Jools. She has been a big inspiration and role model. I think that she has created something special with Reclaim Yourself. Jools works with a small and dedicated team of teachers, chefs, and locations to create unforgettable experiences. I've seen how much attention and love she puts into her work and her retreats. Her recent efforts focus on how to run a sustainable retreat business, have a positive impact on the people and places she works with, and create responsible travel experiences. I'm sure you will enjoy this episode. Jools and I had a wide-ranging conversation. We talked about how she took over a whole village in India to create a retreat. She told me what led her to create the retreat in Mongolia, and we discussed what sustainable travel means for her and the responsibility she sees in supporting local communities. I'm very happy to have Jools as one of my first guests on the show. Welcome to the show, Jools. It's such a pleasure to have you here. It's a real honor to talk to you.
Oh, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm really excited about it. I was really honoured when I got your message asking me to be part of this. I just thought, what a brilliant idea. I'm in.
Thank you so much. I mean, I have to say, and also to give our listeners a little bit of context, you've been such an inspiration for myself. And actually, like the moment that we met going to Mongolia, I mean, you organized the first ever yoga retreat in Mongolia. And I was so lucky to be with you there. It was just like an amazing experience. So, yeah, you've really created something special.
Oh, yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, you did dive in right at the deep end, didn't you? I would say that Mongolia is probably our most adventurous retreat. ever, and it still is. But you came to the first one, so you saw it all unfolding, didn't you?
Yes, absolutely. So before we go a little bit more into the retreats themselves and also again to Mongolia, I just want to go back a little bit in time, and I want to ask, like, do you actually remember your first retreat that you ever attended? Or did you ever attend a retreat before creating your own?
I used to work in international development, and I lived in Tanzania in East Africa, and I had a completely different life there. And I was working in an office, feeling a little bit unhappy about that whole part of my life. And while I was there, I retrained as a massage therapist. And while doing all my training, met this whole group of expat people that were into wellness. And through them, I discovered yoga retreats. And they weren't kind of the yoga retreats that you have today, but it was like a group of people going away for a weekend. They just put themselves into a hotel, took their yoga teacher with them, and ordered healthy meals. And I kind of went along to a few of those. And I think at that point in my life where I was, in that work hard, play hard phase that you tend to have, well, I don't know if everyone does, I did, where I was, I used to smoke, I was drinking, I was working late, I was drinking coffee, I was kind of getting towards burnout. And when I used to go away for my weekends, I would just go away, drink all weekend, have loads of fun, have a big blowout, and then come back feeling even worse. And then go back to work on a Monday. And I think by suddenly doing these weekends with this group of people where you went away and you looked after yourself and you ate well and you slept well and you moved your body and you were in company of other people that encourage you to do that, and then I'd go back to work on Monday feeling amazing. So for me, that was the very first moment and the inspiration of going, this is a really good thing to do. So yeah, that's kind of, I didn't really book a retreat like the retreats you have now because they weren't around. I'm that old, it's been going for that long.
But then you, at some point, you decided to step out of the corporate world and go more into the whole wellness sector. What was that journey like?
It took me a while. I mean, I worked in development for 10 years, and that was always, I studied it at university. That was always my plan. And I did it for 10 years, and I kind of just got a bit disillusioned with it. When I got this job in Tanzania, I was so excited to go. And then when I got there, I realised I didn't really fit in. I didn't like being an expat and being kind of segregated. And I couldn't find my way past it. And, I know loads of amazing people that still do that work, and they've found their way through that maze, and they're not in a segregated life, and they're doing amazing work. But for me, I just got stuck in it somehow. It wasn't right for me. So I kind of went through that phase of being very disillusioned and thinking, well, this is my life plan and it's not working now. What shall I do? And I was really lucky because the expat community in Tanzania at the time was relatively small, and there was this amazing woman called Radka, who's a Slovenian woman who set up a spa in Dar es Salaam. At the time, it was the only one, and everyone used to go there for massages. And she just said to me one day, I have a really strong feeling that I need to teach you massage. Do you want to learn? I'm going to put a course together for you. And I was like, yeah, why not? Not much else to do in the evenings here. Never really thought about it. I'll sign myself up for that. Yeah. And literally, I went in for the first day, and the day that I put my hands on the first person, there was just this moment of reconnection to myself and to that person who my hands were on. And it was just life-changing for me. And I'm just so lucky that happened. I didn't even know that was going to happen. I just kind of went along because I thought it'd be something a bit different. And I was just in. I was like, I think I was so disconnected from being an expat, feeling disconnected to my work, to other people, feeling a bit lonely. And then suddenly to put my hands on someone and feel this deep, meaningful connection. And Radka was the most amazing teacher. She just basically downloaded years and years and years of experience. And it wasn't, like a massage course where you learn a routine and then you pass your test. It was more her saying, how do you feel your body, somebody's body through your hands? Don't think about it, feel it. It was the most amazing training. And she was a tough teacher, I had to massage her every week, and she'd go, no, not like that, no. And it was, it's a hard way to learn, but I really, really learned the art of massage. And I was just hooked. This makes me feel good, and I'm helping somebody else feel good. What else can I do? And I just went on this, really wonderful journey, because Rad could say, oh, so-and-so teaches yoga at her house. Do you want to come and try that? I'm like, yoga, what's that? Let's go. So off I went. And I think because I wasn't in the UK, which is where I'm from, and I was in this, small, quiet place, I just had time in my evenings and weekends to explore it. And then, looking at food and changing my diet. And then I stopped smoking, and then I cut down on my drinking. And I kind of just went on my own journey from almost burnt out into getting well and getting healthy. And then I took a sabbatical from my job, came back to London and did my professional massage training, because I was like, this is what I want to do with my life. So then I did my anatomy and physiology, passed my exams, and then I went back to Tanzania and did consultancy work plus massage. And I thought, this is my new life. I'll do consultancy work and earn money, and then I'll do massage and just enjoy my life. And for a couple of years that worked for me, and I carried on, connecting and learning and practicing yoga and learning Tai Chi, and then I did Reiki, and, just kind of as you do when it's all new, just went into everything. And after a couple of years, I just thought, I can't actually live this dual life. It's like a schizophrenic life where one day I'm doing my consultancy work and I feel a bit depressed and I don't feel right about what I'm doing. And then another day I'm massaging or, doing some kind of healthy weekend and I feel amazing. Life is short, and I was like, I've just got to live it. So I basically decided to come back to the UK and try and work out what to do. I didn't come back thinking I'm going to set up a retreat company, because that didn't really exist at the time. I think I thought I was going to set up a spa, and I came back to London, and then the reality of being in the West, I was like, oh, that's going to be very expensive, and loads of people are already doing that. I don't think I really want to do that. So I did massage for a few months, wondering what to do, met loads of really interesting people, and then I got a job working at Purple Valley Retreat Centre in Goa. I don't know if you've heard of that. It's an Ashtanga yoga retreat centre. It's been running for a really long time. It's a really amazing place. They basically have all of the top Ashtanga yoga teachers internationally come and teach a 1 or 2 week retreat. And so there's a massive turnover of up to 40 guests every 1 or 2 weeks, and a whole team behind it. And that was my first experience of a proper retreat centre, and all the drama and the magic and the power and everything. I was like, this is what I want to do. And at that point, when I first came back to the UK, I signed up to do a nutrition course. And I'd met some people on that course that were saying, let's do some events. And we'd kind of done a couple of things in the UK and just invited our friends and just, put up some bell tents in a garden and ran a sort of a weekend for our friends. But then when I went to India, that was when I went, oh, this is what a retreat is. And watch that journey that people do from when they arrive on a retreat until they leave. And I watched it happen time and time and time again for like a whole 8-month period. And I think that's where I really kind of learned what it is and how I wanted to be involved.
So how long did it take you from walking into Radka's place for the first time and then setting up your very first own retreat?
3 years. My first proper retreat, I would say, I did a UK weekend in Dartmoor. I can't remember the name of the place now. It was not a public place. It was someone's private house. But it was the first one where it wasn't just my friends coming, where we actually advertised it. And, had a proper chef and a proper yoga retreat, yoga teacher, rather than just a group of friends doing it. And that was in 2005.
When you did that first weekend, like what was the motivation? Was it also to share your own skills, like offer massages or anything beyond that?
It definitely wasn't about my massages at that point. It was, I think my original motivation, and this is still very much part of it, is I had just met some really amazing practitioners and I wanted to put them together and create it was a creative thing. I wanted to put together a program with this yoga teacher, this healer, this chef, and this is what's going to happen at this time, and then that's going to happen there. And I was always interested in how you create each day and what happens to people during each day and who's going to do what, and the process from when someone arrives to when they leave. So it was really for me about creating that event and then inviting people in to say, if you come and do this, I guarantee you're going to feel great.
And so how would you say over the last, it's now 15 years?
15 years, yeah.
Wow, that's like a long time. So how would you say did this whole thing evolve in terms of the motivation, what you want to create and how that shows up for the guests?
I think, actually, I was thinking about this the other day. My original motivation for what I do still stands. I haven't really changed in terms of, for me, it's all about creating these amazing experiences and working with brilliant teams to deliver them and offering it out to people and saying, come and join us. But the way that I've done it and where I've done it and how I've done it has changed along the way. It's kind of gone through different phases. I never sat down and went, I'm going to create a retreat business and this is my business plan. And in 3 years, I'm going to make this much money. And in 5 years, I'm going to make this much money. And in 10 years, I'm going to sell it and I'm going to be a millionaire. Sometimes I think I should have done that. But it's too late now. That's not what I did. It's just been a kind of creative, I didn't think I'd end up doing this as a full-time job. I didn't think this would be it. I thought I would kind of, do some events and do other stuff. And it just kind of grew. But I think that the creative force of what I've been doing has always been there. But when I first started, I didn't really think, I just wanted to go to beautiful places. And I think because I lived in Tanzania and I managed to, travel, Tanzania is an incredibly beautiful country and there's so many amazing places. And I think if you live there, you start to explore places that people don't go to so much. So I got a real taste for going to incredible wild places. So I wanted to find those kind of places, but at the beginning I didn't have the courage to take people to places like that. I felt like people, I did a retreat in Goa, but instead of booking a retreat centre, I took over a village. I just wanted to do it that way. I think because I had been doing development work before, I always wanted my retreats to be something where I gave something back. And I like working with local people. I don't really want to kind of go to a foreign-owned retreat centre. So I worked at a foreign-owned retreat centre and it was amazing. But I really liked the fact that the Indian staff were the people that were really running the show and the rest of us foreigners just kind of had to ask them how to do it. So I kind of found a village in South Goa and then had a meeting with the village government and said, I'd like to bring a group here and this is, what I'd like to do. And then they had a whole discussion. They said, yes, you can do that. And they had about 6 houses in the village where people had spare rooms that they rented out to travellers. So we basically invested, gave them all some money so they could repaint the rooms, get new mattresses, set it all up. They cleared a piece of land for the yoga. And then I employed most of the village to be part of the retreat, even the kids who'd run off and get the bread in the mornings. And it was like a massive effort from everybody. I didn't make any money at all myself, but it was an amazing experience. And so I've kind of always wanted to do things that are a bit different and a bit unusual. I guess that's always been part of what I do.
So what are then the moments where you feel like within a retreat, where you feel that you're really close to your mission, close to what you want to do?
The moments on a retreat when I feel that, I don't know if it's whether I feel, I'm just thinking about it now, it's such a good question. There's usually, on most retreats, there's a moment where I sit there and I go, yes. And it's normally when the group have connected, and it's often it's a meal time or it's an activity where most of the group, if not all of them, are involved, and they're deeply connecting with the local host, and everyone's talking and chatting and communicating and sharing, and they're in the moment. They're totally present. They're not talking about something that's happened to them at home. They're maybe not talking about any problems they got. They're right there present, talking about where they are, what they're doing. They're connecting with somebody who probably doesn't even speak much of their language. And those are the moments when I feel absolute joy. Like, this is it. This is where we're at.
And so how are retreats any different from the usual experiences when we travel, when we go to foreign places, when we meet people in other countries? What is it that makes retreats so special?
Yeah, I mean, it's the power of travel plus wellness, isn't it? It's the combination of those two things. And, like I was talking about earlier, you can go on a trip. There's so many different types of trips you can go on. And for people that are passionate and love traveling and love going on holidays, you can, go away somewhere and just being away from home, being out of your routine, being away from your stress of your daily life, that in itself is, I think, something that, that whenever you travel, whether you're going on a package holiday or you're going to climb a mountain, that's your kind of first thing that happens when you're away that starts to shift you. And I think going to another place and you're meeting another culture and you've got different surroundings, all of those things, and maybe being a bit out of your comfort zone, maybe feeling a little bit challenged, you just kind of shift. But if you then add in doing daily yoga classes twice a day, that's, for some people, maybe they practice yoga twice a day. I find that most people that come on my retreats, that's not their normal practice. We do get some people that have a daily practice, but often it's people that go to classes once or twice a week, and sometimes once a week, or they haven't been to yoga for ages, and then suddenly they're there and they're doing a daily practice. They're up early in the morning, they're working, they're moving, they're breathing. I work with really brilliant yoga teachers. I think some of them. And it's challenging. And it's, being in that situation every day, people asking you to have a little think about things. Some of my teachers teach quite strong philosophy. And it's challenging. And to have that daily practice, you start your day with that, and then you go out and do whatever you're going to do. And then you come back together and you continue that practice in the evening. That journey that people do from the, when they go into class the first day, they're like a raggedy bunch that all run in. Some of them are in there early and some of them run in there late. And, by day 3, they're like this beautiful group that are working together. They're all in unison because they've been in this class. They're having this shared experience. I don't go into the yoga classes. I like people to feel they're having a private experience with the yoga teacher, so I don't let the team come in. We don't go and watch. It's something very private. So what I see is what they're like before a class and what they're like after a class. And sometimes, in a morning, if someone hasn't slept well or some stuff's come up for them, I always greet everyone in the morning before they go into yoga class and make sure they're all right. And I kind of think, a couple of people are feeling a little bit out of sorts. By the time they all come out of yoga, their whole mood has shifted and changed. And it's not always an easy process. It's not like you go into yoga and you come out, you feel happy. Sometimes it will, challenge you. Sometimes people come out and they feel frustrated or they feel upset. But, going on that journey with a yoga teacher is very powerful. And then if you add in an amazing chef who's feeding you like great, nutritional, powerful, tasty food that you're not having to think about, I mean, you're a chef, you can talk more about this. The power of feeding people is, as same with yoga, it can be quite controversial because not everyone's going to love every meal, not everyone's going to love what you're doing. But if you're having, a retreat where you're having a bit less sugar, a bit less caffeine, a bit less alcohol, we tend to do plant-based food. Sometimes we do vegetarian, but it's mostly plant-based food. And we take away refined sugars. We do have a coffee every now and again. We don't serve alcohol, but people can have a drink if they go out. So it's not like a total strict thing. But for many people, that's not how they normally eat. And that is also a journey. I'm not a yoga teacher, I'm not a chef, so I don't feel qualified to talk in great detail, but what I see is people going through that journey, and I think it's a very powerful thing. And then, if you add maybe having a treatment, a massage, some transformational breath work, whatever shiatsu, and then sleeping well, and then resting, and then going out and have adventures, that whole combination for people takes them, I think, more deeply into themselves and then along on a journey that is often quite transformational. And I do think you can have that if you go on a package holiday tour. You can, but it's different. It's different. It depends what you need from a holiday. But for me, that's what I see happens on a retreat. It's why I'm so passionate about it.
I mean, I totally get you, and I see it within my own retreats, and especially like when I cook for people and when they come out of class, I see same thing, like when they go into class in the morning and when they come out, they're like totally transformed in a way. And you can also feel over the days how the group gets together, and those are always very, very special moments. Sometimes it's at a meal table, sometimes it's like a little trip that you take and everybody is in a special place in nature, and then you really feel this moment where it connects, where it shifts from being the individuals that come on a retreat towards like becoming this group, this organism that's together, and there's like a bond that's created. And also I have that a lot within like when the moments when we serve the food. It's something that many of us don't really experience that in such a way anymore, because most of the people that come to the retreats, most of us are living on their own, and coming together and share food in such a way, apart from having a lunch break with colleagues or whatever, it's something that doesn't happen so often. And so that's also quite a powerful thing. But so how do you see your own role in those moments? Like when you say you don't go into the class, you don't teach, sometimes I know you do massages, you offer massage, but how do you see your role in general for the group, and how do you connect with the people?
Well, I think I have loads of different roles. I'm the organizer, so I'm usually kind of the logistical manager of the retreat, I'd like to say. So I am the person that, I put the schedule together and then I have to deliver it. So I'm the timekeeper, and I'm the person making sure that everyone's gone into yoga on time, and if someone's missing, check where they are, make sure they're okay. I'm the person that makes sure you're all right in the kitchen. Is food going to be on the table? If there's an excursion that people are going on, the minibus is there or whatever. I'm the person that just puts, and some of the retreats we do, there's a lot happening. So I am the lady with the clipboard, with a list, walking around, making sure that everything happens. So I feel like when you run a retreat, you create a container. And the container, the kind of structure of it is the schedule. And I think it's really important that you deliver that schedule exactly as you have promised, because people feel safe then. If everything starts being a bit late or keeps changing, it really does affect everyone's mood. And sometimes if you're working somewhere that has crazy weather, you have to change things. But I always make it very clear at the beginning. I put my schedule up on the wall and I tell people if there's any change, you'll see it in red the day before, and then I'll let you know, so everyone feels safe and that they're in good hands, that this is not something that's just going to turn into chaos. So that's my first job.
What else is it that you feel that makes people feel safe? Because this is also something that I experience a lot. Like, once I'm able to create an atmosphere where people feel safe, then it's possible to create magic.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think at the core of it, it's down to the team. You know, I've been doing it for 15 years, but I quite often put myself in situations where we're running retreats in quite crazy countries. But I do have a very calm approach to most things. And people say to me, you know, sometimes I've been a bit worried, then I look at your face, Jools, and I feel fine. You know, I think it's a bit that thing like when you're on an aeroplane and there's turbulence and you check the air steward, and if they're not looking worried, it's all good. So I think I have quite a strong part to play, you know, because they've dealt with me in the build up to the retreat, and there I am running it, and I'm calm and I'm like, don't worry, we'll sort that out, that's fine. But also having a really amazing yoga teacher who's confident, strong, can, you know, so much stuff can come up in a yoga class, as you know, and on a retreat even more so, and having a teacher that's very experienced with that. Because you're in a residential situation, it's not like you teach one class and everyone goes home and just deals with themselves. You know, stuff is going to come up. So a teacher that is present, you know, and my teachers don't just teach the class then disappear off in their room. They eat meals with the guests. Sometimes they come out on excursions. They climb mountains with them. They're fully available and fully connected and part of the retreat. So, and same thing with the chefs. They don't really have time so much to kind of engage, but they're always there at meal times. They're always there to chat about what they've cooked, why they have. So I think people feel, yeah, these guys know what they're doing. You know, what I'm eating, what I'm practicing, what I'm doing. These people are professional. So I think that's a really big part of it. And then just, you know, what you've created, there's a real skill to putting together a retreat schedule and the journey that people go on. It's definitely, I'm really passionate about that whole design of a retreat and understanding. I mean, you know, you run retreats. There's usually a day where everyone feels a bit funny, and how you manage that day is just absolutely key. And it's taken me years to understand that is where the magic happens. That's the juicy bit, isn't it? That's where people are feeling a bit out of their comfort zone. They're tired, they're homesick, they fancy a beer. They're kind of just in that place going, ugh. And I used to take that personally. I used to think, oh my God, people are not enjoying the retreat. Oh no, what have I done wrong? And now, after years of doing it, I understand that that's where you do the work. And kind of going back to your earlier question about my role, beyond the practical role of what I'm doing and supporting people, I make sure that I get to know every single person on the first day. You know, I'm dealing with them. We run 10 retreats a year. It's not a massive company, and I want to keep it that way. So I know everyone's name before they come. Some of them I've already chatted to if they've asked me lots of questions, but I always make sure I get a little list and I go through and I make sure on the first day that I've spoken to everyone, and then, you know, within 2 days I'll make sure that I've sat with different people at meal times and just find out stuff about them. And I've got my own little secret formula about what kind of things I want to ask them. Like, I never say, what do you do? I don't want to know, you know, what job they do. I don't want them to define themselves to me into, oh, I'm a lawyer or I'm a nurse. You know, I ask them different questions, and I kind of try and find out what it is that why they're here, why they've come on a retreat. And then I kind of try and make it my business to make sure they get what they need as they go through. And also, if there's something happening for them where they feel vulnerable or worried or bored, or that I can find a way to give them what they need. And I think that's my specialist skill. That's what I'm really bringing to a retreat. And I work quite closely with my team. You know, sometimes people, something will come up for somebody in yoga and they'll share it with the yoga teacher, or something will come up in a healing session and they'll share it. And what happens to people on a retreat is very private, and all of my team are very good at, you know, client confidentiality. But sometimes a team member will come to me and say, can I speak to you in private? You know, this person just had a pretty big session. She's feeling a little bit wobbly, and they won't tell me what it is and what's gone on because it's private. But they'll say, she's feeling a little bit wobbly, and I'll just make sure, if I can, that I'll sit next to that person at lunch and just quietly check in, or just, if I can't sit next to them, I'll just keep my eye briefly and maybe give the yoga teacher a heads up and say, that person's having a bit of a day today. Let's be gentle. So we're kind of really caring for everybody as it goes along. And I think my role is to oversee all of that for my guests in a very compassionate and careful way.
What would you say, like how big of an importance is this kind of ability to hold space, to be ready to encounter maybe difficult situations with guests when they're going through a hard time?
Oh, I think it's like the absolute key to the success of a retreat. Really, I think if you want to, if you want to create a retreat where people are doing deep work, I think it's essential. And it's not easy sometimes. It's not easy, and I'm really grateful for my team, because there are days when I can handle a lot. I can cope with a lot, especially on the sort of logistical, practical stuff. If something goes wrong, I can manage quite a lot of bonkers situations, but sometimes people come at you, and it's hard, and it's good. People might, when they arrive, they're not happy with, they've arrived and they feel out of their comfort zone, and as I'm the organizer and the owner, of course they're going to come to me and maybe present me with something that I can't do anything about, and sometimes that's quite hard to hold. And in those moments, I've had such amazing support from, say, my yoga teacher saying, don't take it personally. There's probably something else going on. Have faith in the process. Be kind, be compassionate, be strong. Let's hold it together and see what happens in the next couple of days. And, 9 times out of 10, whatever was bothering that person when they arrive, within 24, 48 hours, as they settle into the process, they kind of go, oh, okay. This is cool, I can do this. So it's so important to not, argue back with someone when they're not happy when they arrived, and say to them, well, this is what you booked, this is what you paid for, I made it quite clear. It's so easy to do that, but instead to step back and understand the deeper process, that there's something going on. And I think when you work with a really experienced retreat team, you all know that. You all know what's going on and what you have to wait for.
So how do you choose your team? Like, how do you find the people that you like to work with and that you have like a long working relationship with?
Very interesting question. It's kind of word of mouth. Usually, my team's quite small, and I prefer to keep it that way. It's not that I don't like put a retreat together and then try and find a team to deliver it. I find the team and then I put the retreat together. So it's a real kind of creative collaboration. So I think I'm currently working with 10 people in total, and not everyone does every retreat. So I think I've got 4 yoga teachers that I work with, 3 chefs, and then a couple of assistants and body workers. And I think, like, I work a lot with Emma Henry, who I think she's a really amazing Jivamukti teacher. And how I met her is one of her students came on another one of my retreats. And she said to me, do you know Emma Henry? And I said, no. And she said, you and her really remind me of each other. I'd really like to introduce her to you. I don't know if she's interested in doing retreats. I go to her classes. She just kind of says similar jokes to you. Maybe you just like each other. And I thought, yeah, she sounds great. And, got home, Googled her, as you do, checked her out and thought, yeah, she looks cool. And then we just met for a juice. And I just liked her immediately and said, this is what I'm doing. And she's like, yeah, that sounds great. And it was literally a conversation like that. And then she said, come to class. And I think at the time I'd had an injury and I had a frozen shoulder. So I went and sat in the corner of the class and just watched watched this, and I'd never been to a Jivamukti class before, and I mean, an Emma Henry Jivamukti class is something else, isn't it? I think there's about 50 people in the class, and I walked in, I was like, yes, please, I want this on my retreats. I don't know what it is, but I like it. And then we had a couple more meetings. I think we went out for afternoon tea at a hotel in London, and I thought we'd meet for an hour, and we left about midnight, having met at 3 p.m, and we just didn't stop talking. So the connection was just so deep straight away. And, you know, clearly Emma is a very talented teacher, but she's also very well travelled, very worldly, and had so many ideas. So we were just like, yeah. So it kind of happens like that. It's organic. And someone will suggest somebody and say, well, this person would be interesting for you to work with. And sometimes it's guests that come on retreats that have been to like other people's classes, or, you know, I think I worked on a retreat in Ibiza, and the guy who owned the retreat centre said, oh, we work with this great woman called Amanda Tizard. She does massaging and healing work. Would you like her to come in and massage your clients? And I was like, yeah, sure, great. And she turned up, and as soon as she walked in, she just went, hello. I was like, hello. And we just sat down and talked for ages, because she'd arrived and they were still in class, and we were chatting. And me and her, we just got on so well. And I was like, oh, please come and do more and more retreats with me. And I've managed to kind of lure her in to do more and more. So we're like a really tight team. And I think Adam Hostner is another teacher I work with quite a lot. I had actually met, I don't know if you know him, Sigismondi. No. Alessandro Sigismondi. He's a photographer, filmmaker. Italian guy, really talented, really interesting. And I'd met him, I can't remember why, to talk to him about a project in Italy. And he was showing me some of his work, and he showed me a film of Adam. And it was a funny film about him running around London teaching and drinking too much coffee. And I just thought, yeah, he looks like fun. And then there was a bit of him doing his practice, and I just thought, he looks like fun. So I don't know, I'm not really answering your question. I don't advertise. I don't do like a recruitment like that. I kind of go by word of mouth, and then I meet people and I chat to people, and I have an idea of what I want and what I need. And I think a lot of teachers in particular don't want to work the way that I'm working, because I want a lot, I expect a lot. It's like either you're into this whole thing or you're not. It's not that you like get booked for a job and you turn up and you get paid $1,000 or $3,000 and then go away. It's like you're in this team and you're in this process, and you've got to give it your all. And I think that certain people at certain times in their life, especially in a teaching career, are up for that. And it's the same for the chefs. It's like you can't just turn up and do a menu and go home. You've got to create a menu that is part of this process. Yeah. So, yeah, it takes a certain type of person.
I totally get that. And that's something that I've also experienced going with you to Mongolia. And I mean, knowing Emma, and I've cooked for Emma on a retreat myself. So, and I've met Bettina, who's cooking for you. So I really feel the kind of connection that you have with those people. And at least the way I've experienced them, it totally feels like natural to me. Yeah. And that's also something that I see in creating my retreats, like to have a team. It's not, I mean, if I want to create that kind of magic, if I want to create that special experience, I see myself as part of the whole experience, but also everybody of the team.
Absolutely.
So it's really about that, and I really want to feel that passion within each and everyone who's working on that, who's trying to create this week of magic or those days that are really transformative for the guests.
Absolutely.
And knowing Emma and some of the other people, it's something that I absolutely feel, and it's a lot of fun. And I think that's also something that's quite unique and special about what you do and how you create those experiences.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't know if it's unique, because obviously I haven't actually been on a retreat myself for a long time. I haven't been on anybody else's retreat, so I don't know. I kind of know that what I'm doing and where I'm working and the way that I'm working is quite different to a a lot of other people. But that bond that we share on a retreat with the team and also with our local teams, that's always been there since the beginning. That's absolutely integral to what we do. I have had other people, some people come along and they do one retreat and it's just not for them. I mean, as a team member, usually because it's too tough. I mean, working on a retreat, people go, oh, yo, you run retreats. Oh, like I'm sitting by the pool all day. It's such hard work. It's like minimum 14-hour day, especially the locations that we work. So, the people that I work with regularly, they're grafters. We all know that process of getting up at 6 a.m. and working through till 10, and how to manage and resource ourselves and get through that day. And the people that come along and do it once or twice, they're just not up for that process. I don't think it's too tough.
So is there also a certain emphasis that you create a dedicated experience, that there's something that you have actually in mind setting up a retreat, or something maybe also in the future that you look at creating these experiences? Is there any kind of theme that you're aiming at?
I think always my theme at the heart of it is the wellness journey. And now, in the last, I'd say 4 years now, I've been really focused. I kind of did a real shift I changed my sort of tagline to explore extraordinary places. And I've kind of decided to specialise in going to what some people call bucket list locations, or those kind of really often unusual unusual, wild, remote places. And those places are the places that I love to go to, that I feel passionate. That's what I've always wanted to do. And I finally got to a point where I feel confident enough to try and organise retreats there. It's not easy because quite often I'm working in places where they haven't had a retreat before, and certainly not a retreat like we're doing. So it's kind of pioneering, but that whole idea of being in the wilderness and being somewhere really remote, possibly without any Wi-Fi, where people are really roaming around in nature, that I would say goes alongside the wellness stuff now. And more, the locations have quite a strong element of adventure travel in them. So I'm kind of adding in the possibility to hike to the top of a mountain, to ride horses somewhere remote, to go snorkeling in some kind of paradise island. So as I'm putting the retreats together now, I am looking at locations that have those extra elements. So you've kind of got your wellness stuff, some adventures, some wilderness. So that's kind of like my package these days. And I would say that Mongolia probably is like epitomizes all of that. That was probably the first one that I did that I went, yeah, this is exactly what I've always wanted to do. And it took me nearly 10 years to get there.
Let's talk about that story again. Let our listeners know, because I heard it already a little bit. I know the story behind it, but I find it so fascinating. How did you come about going to Mongolia to host a yoga retreat?
I know. Mongolia is a bit of a special one. This doesn't happen. This process is not what happens for all of my retreats. But for me, Mongolia had been a childhood dream. So when I was young, I read a book. I've always been into horses, and I read a book called The Marvellous Mongolian Pony, and I was 7, and it just has such a big impact on me because at the time Mongolia was a completely closed country. You couldn't go there, and the story was about a young girl in the UK who'd bought a wild horse and she couldn't tame it, and she had a Mongolian pen pal, which is what you used to have before the internet. And he was an amazing horseman, because that's what they do in Mongolia. They're famous for how they ride. And he was sending her letters telling her how to train her horse, but they were exchanging, ideas about where they lived. And to me, in my mind, it was then planted that Mongolia was the ultimate place, like this completely wild, incredible place that you couldn't go to. You weren't allowed because the borders were closed. And so the seed was planted then. And many, many years later, when I had moved back to the UK and was kind of starting my job, I was living in a flat share, and my flatmate was working for an NGO, and one of the countries that she was managing was Mongolia. She's like, "Oh, I'm going to Mongolia next week," and I was like, "What? You're going to Mongolia? Oh my God!" And I was just and like as soon as she came back, I was like, "Tell me everything." And she was just describing what it was like, and I was like, I really want to run a retreat there. Because I just started then. I was kind of right at the beginning, and I just thought it'll never happen. But the seed was planted. And then another friend of mine went to Mongolia with her family, and she sent me a message saying, "I've just been to this camp in northern Mongolia. It's open for tourists. You have to go through a tour company in the UK. You can't go there independently, but I talked to the owner and he would be open to it. So here's his contact." I was like, sent him an email, absolutely no reply. And then I kind of started this process of thinking, right, I'm going to do it. And I kept they used to have all these big camps, they probably still do, and you can like travel there with Audley Travel and all the big travel agents here in the UK. You can do these trips where you kind of do the Trans-Siberian and end up in Mongolia, and you stay in these camps, and they're big camps for like 50 people. There's no way you can do yoga, and they serve very different food. And I was thinking that was going to be my only option, and I kept writing to people and no one would reply, or they did and then it wasn't suitable, and I kind of almost gave up. But it just I kept having this. I for some reason, I always dream about Mongolia. I have these amazing dreams where I'm in this place and I'm completely free in this empty space, and I'm running around and I'm completely safe. It's like my happy dream. And I've actually been having them quite a lot in lockdown, which is quite interesting. It's obviously about freedom, I would say. Anyway, I then decided I've got to do this. And I don't do this for every retreat, but I spent a weekend doing a vision board. So I did a whole load of research. I bought a Lonely Planet book rather than going online, because I didn't want to sit online. And I researched and I researched and I researched. And then I decided, I looked at a map and I looked at all the different places you could go. And I decided a particular area and just went, that is where I want to do my retreat. And then I did a vision board and put all the different elements on there. And then I Googled that place, and a newspaper article came up for this particular area. And it was a journalist who'd gone to a camp and described his experience. And at the bottom, it just said, my trip was hosted by this particular travel company. So I Googled them, found their email, emailed them, and went, "Oh, hello, blah, blah, blah." And I literally got a reply within 5 minutes. And after years and years of not hearing from anyone, I suddenly got a reply. And at the time, the company I work with, it's a Mongolian company, but this very inspiring Swedish guy called Jan Wigston, who has been working in Mongolia for years, he had the vision to set this company up, and he got my email. And I don't know if it's because he's Swedish, but something he just thought that would be a brilliant idea. Someone should do some yoga retreats in Mongolia. And he wrote to me and said, "I think that's a really great idea. What would you need to make it happen?" And I said, "Oh, I would need this space for the yoga." And we kind of had a couple of email exchanges, and then we did a Skype. I think it was Skype at the time. And he was like, "Look, if you're going to do a retreat in Mongolia, you have to come here. You have to come and see it. You can't imagine it unless you've been here. Can you come next week?" And I was just like, "Oh my God." And then I booked a flight, and I was in Mongolia within a week. And it was like one of those moments in my life. Like when I arrived, it was in September, it was snowing. It was quite intense. And then we just went straight out to the Gobi. And when I arrived in the Gobi, it was like arriving in the place that I've been dreaming about. It was so powerful for me. It's like, I'm here. I've actually done it. I'm here. And from there, we ran our first retreat the following July. And you were there, weren't you?
Yes, I was there. I was there.
So it doesn't normally take me that much effort to put a retreat together, but that was something that, was obviously meant to be. And I have to say that I think that since I've been doing the retreats in Mongolia, it's been a turning point, because I then had the confidence to really look at my vision and go, I'm going to do this.
I mean, I have to say this was definitely one of the most amazing travel experiences and retreat experiences that I had in my life. And again, to give a little bit of context, I mean, I went not as a guest, but I went there to film. And so there is actually a little kind of evidence and a beautiful little film that we created that's out there. And I'm going to put a link into the show notes. But I think I just want you to explain a little bit more what it is actually like, because you just said okay, you went to Mongolia and then you ended up in the Gobi, but I think it doesn't really communicate in a way like the immense amount of travel and the sheer vastness of the country and what it takes to actually go there. It sounds a little bit like, you go to Mongolia and then you end up in the Gobi, but tell us a little bit more about the whole experience.
Good point. Yeah. Well, I mean, to go from Europe to Mongolia is, the quickest way is to fly there with Aeroflot via Moscow, which is, some people go, I don't really want to do that. But actually, it's fine. It's great. But, it takes you 12 hours to get there. And then you've got a really big time difference. So when people arrive, we're changing it up for the next retreat, but usually we stay one night in Ulaanbaatar. So you kind of arrive, we always stay in the same hotel. It's a kind of a comfortable but Russian built block hotel that people kind of go, ooh, okay, first step. I mean, Ulaanbaatar has changed dramatically even since you were there, Sasha. You won't believe it. But when we first went, it was quite a basic city, wasn't it? There wasn't so much to do. It's quite hard to find somewhere to eat.
I actually have to say I was totally surprised, because I think Ulaanbaatar had something like 8 or 9 vegan restaurants, and that totally blew my mind.
Yeah, they're really good on vegan stuff. But now they have a lot more restaurants. They're really on it now. And there's some really interesting places to go. So you kind of arrive, you stay your first night, you've got jet lag. So you arrive at 6 o'clock in the morning, all the flights arrive at 6 o'clock in the morning. And if you've come from Europe, that's actually, 5 p.m. or something in the evening. I can't remember the time difference exactly. So the trick is that you have to stay awake all day to kick the jet lag. And about 50% of the group fail and go to sleep. And then they wake up and it's night time. And then the next morning early, we wake up and we go to the train station and we take the train on the Trans-Mongolian. It's the same route as the Trans-Siberian Express, but it's a different train. So we're on a local Trans-Mongolian train for the whole day. And we've got 4 or 5 carriages, and we spend the entire day on this train, and it's just brilliant. It's slow travel. It is the epitome of slow travel. No, actually, you're going slower and slower. And that time, there are beds, so some people who haven't been able to get some sleep or have a sleep, but already people are starting to chat and bond. And then you go along, and then it gets more and more and more empty as you're heading into the Gobi, and you see less and less, and then you occasionally see a herd of camels or a herd of horses and some cows, and it gets less and less and less. And then you get to this train station that actually is just a block of concrete, which is the platform. And suddenly it's like everyone get off the train, so it's like bundle, and everyone jumps off the train, and then you are in the middle of absolutely nowhere, and everyone's face is like, oh my God, what are we doing? And then we have jeeps that pick everybody up, and we have about another hour's drive off-road, and we're bumping along, getting into more and more rocky, sandy stuff, and then you kind of go over the hill and arrive into our Gobi Camp. And our Gobi Camp, I mean, we've been going there now for 5 years. It's just the most incredible place, isn't it? There's 14 big yurts. It's a luxury camp, but it's glamping, and they call them gers. The most amazing Mongolian family run that camp, and they've been there for years, and they run it like clockwork. And the first year that we went, no one had ever done that before, so it was quite chaotic, but they have absolutely got it down now. We arrive and it's just totally set up, ready for a yoga retreat. Because normally what they do is they have different guests that arrive in 2s and 3s and stay for a few nights. So for us to book the entire camp out and turn up with 20 people, it's a lot of extra work for them. So we turn up, and they're there with the camels and the camel carts, and they collect all our luggage, and we walk into the camp, and it's a moment. Like Bettina, our chef, goes ahead, so she's kind of there waiting to welcome people, and everyone's got their little name on the door of their yurt, so they kind of run into the camp and they've got to find their yurt. And most people run and find their yurt and go, oh my god, look at this, it's amazing. And then some people are like, where's the toilet? What I've got, because it's glamping, so you've got a beautiful yurt and you've got a nice little sink in your yurt, but the toilets are drop toilets, and they are a little walk outside of the camp, aren't they? And one set of toilets, the camp's kind of divided into two. One set of toilets is actually quite close to where the camel herd lives, so you kind of have to walk past the camels to get to the toilet. And for some people that's quite challenging, and if it's not challenging, it's certainly unusual. So you kind of come from your flat in London, and the next minute, well, not the next minute, actually 2 days later, you're in this camp. And some people you can see are thinking, oh my God, I don't want to go to the toilet there. What if I need to go to the toilet in the middle of the night? And there's that moment where people kind of go, oh my God, where am I? And we have to work hard on that retreat the first few days to really help people feel comfortable. Showers, we have 2 shower gers. And we offer people to have 1 hot shower a day, but they have to book in for it, because every morning the guys get up early, saddle up the camels. I don't actually know if that's the right term. Do you saddle up a camel? I'm not sure.
I don't
Put
know.
the harness on the camel, get the camel cart, get the water. They go off to the spring, and then they bring back the water for the day. And then the girls that are looking after the showers take some of that water, put it on a fire. They make a camel dung fire. They boil the water ready. They put it in a bucket, and that's your shower. And that whole process obviously takes a very long time. So we ask people just have 1 shower a day. And for some people that's challenging, that they can't just go into a bathroom and go to the toilet and have a shower. But honestly, within 2 or 3 days, everyone's just kind of got into the whole rhythm of it. We're basically living like herders, but in very comfortable, cosy beds, with Bettina cooking your food and Emma teaching your yoga. So we stay there for 4 nights, and you can't predict what the weather's going to be. Sometimes it's really windy, sometimes it rains, sometimes it's boiling hot. It changes every day. People can go and ride the camels, they can take a bike and go out in the desert. The herders come and take us out for walks and show us the caves, and we head out on the last day. We head out further into the desert to this amazing like rock bowl where we make a fire, and we have like Bettina cooks this big meal outside, and then we sit and we do kirtan around the fire. And we've bonded so well with our Mongolian team. There's a whole story around this, maybe for another time, but we kind of discovered on our first retreat that Mongolians really love to sing. And it's, if you kind of know a bit about Mongolian culture, you always know about the throat singing, which is quite unusual. They're quite famous throat singers, but actually every Mongolian loves to sing. And they sing to their children, they sing to their parents, they sing to their animals, they sing when they're apart from each other, they sing songs to remember each other by. They've got the most amazing, beautiful songs. And when they heard Emma doing her chanting and her kirtan and the group joining in, they're like, oh, you sing too. And so we've kind of developed this thing where we like have a sing off. So we sit around the fire and we do our call and response kirtan, and then they sing us Mongolian folk songs. And over the years, that has become quite an event for them. And we go off, and they not only, it's not just our Mongolian team, all the local herders rock up. So it's just like turned into this party. So these guys turn up on motorbikes and camels, and they having their own barbecue, and they're like, oh, the yogis are here. And we all kind of, they bring their kids, and it's just the most wonderful experience. It's great. And then the next day we get into jeeps and we spend 8 hours traveling all the way across to a completely different part of Mongolia to stay in a different camp that could not be more different to the Gobi. It's lush and it's green and it's in the mountains, it's by a river, it's much cooler. And we kind of do the whole thing again for another 4 days. So people get a real experience of being in this very sort of moon-like, unusual Mongolian landscape, and then this lush green one. And then we head back to Ulaanbaatar, and they stay another night in the hotel and they go home. So it's a 9-night, 10-day retreat. It's not a small one. It's a big adventure. It's a big journey.
I mean, I've been there and I've seen those places, and that's one of the most beautiful spots that I've seen in my whole life, and also the whole experience. I mean, like, I guess what a lot of listeners, and also like some of the feedback that I had when I was talking to my friends, when I told them that I'd be going to a retreat in Mongolia, and even like after coming back and talking about it, there were a few people asking, like, why do you need to go all the way to Mongolia to do a yoga retreat? And I think it's a reasonable question. It's a valid question. But I felt for myself, and I know what it does. I know what it means to go there. And I felt the kind of appreciation that the people there had for us being there, and the kind of connection that we were able to do. But how do you see it for yourself to go to Mongolia or even to other amazing places far away to create these experiences?
Well, I have mixed feelings about it, actually. What I see is that if you travel to somewhere that's really remote and really far, it's very powerful, and it's a very unusual experience. And I would say that the majority people that have come on our Mongolia trip, for example, they've formed really strong friendships with each other that have, it's probably one of the most powerful retreats we do because of the location, but also because of the Mongolian people and the Mongolian culture. So it's a very, very special experience. But I have mixed feelings about flying around the world to do yoga, full stop. Like, why do we need to do that? And I think it kind of comes down to, why do we travel? And how do we travel? And it's definitely something I've been thinking about a lot more in the last few years, that if you're going to travel somewhere like that, it needs to be done in the right way. And certainly, I mean, there's two things. Like, Mongolia is the most remote and most extreme location we go to, and to spend 2 days getting there and arriving with jet lag and exhaustion, and like, you kind of think, well, why did I do that? This is absolutely bonkers. Why have I just done that to myself? And then I have to spend a few days recovering from that before I enjoy my trip. But I can tell you the end result is absolutely worth the journey. So on that side of it, I think it's a challenge and it's tough. And those are trips of a lifetime. I wouldn't want to be running retreats in Mongolia and doing only that, and doing 20 of those a year. That's kind of not where I'm at. I think once a year, once every other year maybe is the time to do that. But kind of going into maybe a different aspect of this is the idea of yoga retreats and why people get on planes to do yoga, and the whole thing about climate change, which has obviously become like everyone's talking about it now. It's been an issue for a while. It's been bothering me for a while, but it's something that I have now really had a good look at. And my views on that side of things now is I think it's really important that we travel less. And as a retreat company where I take people overseas, I've actually made a decision that I'm going to do less long haul travel, and I'm going to do more slow travel. I'm going to do more local travel. But if we do go on those big trips, they have to be a force for good.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, like, what I experienced when we went to Mongolia. I mean, I really felt how deep of a connection we were able to form and create with the people that were running the camp over there, and the kind of pride that they were showing towards us to be able to host us there. And even like in conversations with them to see, okay, it's something different that you do there. It's not like the usual guests that they have like every week in and out, coming just for a day or two, just for a night and then leaving again. But actually having people there, staying there for a few days is a totally different experience. So they also feel there's a kind of interest, a much deeper interest in the culture and everything that they do. And I remember like the first time when we were there, or when you did the first retreat, like that night when we went out to have this kind of kirtan under the rocks. And I remember the guys coming to us and saying like, hey, this is actually a place where, like, back in the days, the ancient yogis and shamans used to practice and used to have their ceremonies. And it's something so special even for them to be able to have that kind of thing in a way again. It was not that it felt like we were taking over something, because we actually didn't know, but I felt how it filled them with such a pride to be able to share this kind of holy place with us, and to see how we created, how you and Emma created an atmosphere there that was really special, and how the whole retreat, how everybody honored that. It was just not like getting in, seeing a site, some kind of like going in with a bus, stopping there for 5 minutes and then leaving again, but really having an experience that went so deep. And to see how a kind of connection with a culture can form, even in a short time, but a connection that's way deeper than many other travels can give you.
No, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right that I think the kind of retreats that we do, they are, you know, for the person who's traveling, the traveler, the guest, the yogi, whatever, however you want to describe them, they are kind of purchasing an experience. That's what you're selling. And for them, we are creating something really magical and powerful. But the impact and the connection that you have with the people that you're working with, for me, is equally important. And, you know, how you work with a local team. You know, I kind of co-create my retreats with local teams. So, you know, it takes me a long time to find a venue, and then we kind of put the programs together so that they're mutually beneficial. And that's partly the human connection that you're talking about. And you can't kind of plan, you know, what happened in Mongolia, how we found that connection around singing. You can't plan that, you know, but if you set things up in a way where you're all in it together, I think that's really important. There's human connection. Like you said, that's why we travel, isn't it? It goes beyond just rocking up somewhere to do yoga, way beyond that. And I think that really is the power of those kind of deep work that you do on a retreat across everything. On another level, our Mongolia camps are off-grid. So they're like, environmentally, you've got that long flight there, and then once you get there, we're having like zero impact on the environment. So, you know, how I look at where I travel and what I do, you know, if you're going to Mongolia and then you work with a company like that are doing something where they, you know, they're supporting various conservation projects, but we are not damaging the environment. We travel by train, We travel by camel. Like, you know, we're in these camps that they're run by solar, as you know. So the impact that we're having on the environment is minimal, and the positive impact we're having on the people we work with is like max. So I feel good about that.
What is it then that you do at the moment, or that you have been thinking about over the last, I don't know, like months or years, to shift the retreats to a more sustainable way of travel?
Right. I started working on this last year. Kind of people were starting to challenge me. I was starting to feel quite uncomfortable about the number of flights, and people were saying to me, I love your retreats, but I really don't want to go on a plane. I don't feel good about that. And people were saying, oh, you know, you can just offset it. And I was thinking, I'm not sure if that's the answer, just ticking a box on the, you know, you book your flight and then it says, would you like to offset this tick?
So by offset, you mean like paying like for the carbon emission?
That's right, yeah. So there's a whole world out there of companies that donate money to various conservation related projects or tree planting projects to mitigate the impact of carbon emissions. So you can pay money to those companies, which the money will then go towards those projects. So someone has managed to set up this system to say, you know, there's this, if you get on a plane, this is the number of tons of carbon emission, and therefore you can pay this much money to plant this many trees or towards this project that would mitigate it. So it's a bit of an arbitrary calculation, but it's a way of putting some money back into climate positive projects, basically. And I think it's great, but it wasn't the answer for me. I was thinking, no, I actually kind of need to change things a bit. So I started looking at it, and I realised that I wanted to contribute to some of those projects and change where I worked. But I kind of had all these retreats booked, and I wasn't quite sure how. It's going to take me a couple of years, I think, to get there. And then we had global pandemic, and everything stopped. And I've just spent the last 3 months really working hard on this, and, you know, taken the time to really try and understand and study this whole thing from a travel perspective. And I spent a long time working out all my carbon emissions for the last 5 years, beyond like my client flights, my guest flights, the in-country travel, the climate, the carbon emissions from the places I work. And then I did this whole long calculation and worked out that I can cut my carbon emissions by 50%, which I'm really proud about, because everybody is saying we need to reduce our carbon emissions and we need to do it by this amount by this date. And then if everyone did that, then we would be on the path to net zero. And I looked at it and said, actually, I can do quite a lot here. And some of that is reducing long haul travel. But a lot of it is finding the right people to work with, where they are, you know, I'm now working with low impact destinations. So I'm looking at places that are working with renewable energy, that have good waste management. I'm looking at places where, you know, if we do have to fly, once we get there, it's like what they call a climate positive experience. I'm now finding partners in conservation areas. So when you book a retreat there, you're actually supporting that project. Or, you know, looking at, like, I found a new place to work in Panama. It's a reforestation project. So not only is our retreat supporting that, but I've also put money in the budget to add a further contribution. So I've worked out how to cut my carbon emissions by 50%. I've then worked out and put into my budgets that I will offset. I found it's taken me ages. There's so many offset partners out there. I found a brilliant offset company called Offset Earth. Had a long chat with them during lockdown about how I work and how I can do things. And so going forward in my budget, I will offset every guest flight as well as my team flights and any in-country travel. So I've kind of gone down the route of reduce my carbon footprint, offset the rest, and now I'm looking at projects in the countries that I'm working with where I can support conservation, tree planting. And I'm taking my time with that, because you have to make sure that you're supporting a good project, the money's going where it should go. So like if I'm working with like my Mongolian partners, they really know their stuff. I know they're donating to really good conservation projects. But new partners, I've taken the time to ask the questions, and I have such a good response. I mean, people are doing amazing stuff and I never even bothered to ask. I just kind of make assumptions that, that's probably not great. You know, my Iceland venue, they're running on 100% renewable energy. They get the water from the mountain. I didn't even know they had their own reforestation project. I never bothered to ask before. So now I'm finding out all this amazing stuff. So I've like published on my website. I've developed a list of eco-credentials, what I'm looking for in a venue. And then I ask my venues, what are you doing? Where are you at with that? And then I'm publishing it and being really open about where I'm at. And I have to say, there's a couple of places I'm working that don't really fit that. And I'm committed to working with them. Like, obviously, my whole travel plan, retreat plan has been disrupted by the pandemic, and things that were supposed to run this year will run into next year. But as I'm going forward, everything new that I'm choosing now fits these eco-credentials that I've developed, so that I know that when we travel there, one, that we're not travelling as much, but then when we get there, we're contributing to something positive. So I feel quite excited. I'm quite proud of myself. It's taken me ages. I've been to so many webinars. That's what lockdown's all about, isn't it? Zoom meetings, webinars. And I've also been doing this brilliant transformational travel design course, which has just been such an exceptional experience. But there's a network, and I've found people within that network that work on climate change. And so I've just been badgering them and saying, well, what if I do this? And what if I do that? So I feel quite confident now that I'm going in the right direction.
So do you feel there is like how is the response from the places that you work with to go into this? And like what actually, tell me a little bit more also about this kind of what helped you to go deeper into this?
I think the places that I work, some of the places that I work, I think most people have quite a strong awareness about climate change now, don't they? And some of the places that, like Panama, South America, they're on it, those guys. Costa Rica, those kind of places, there's so many eco-lodges there. There's so many places that have been designed with rainwater catchment. Like, it's just, they live in this amazing biodiverse part of the world. They've got their rainforest. They want to protect it. You know, I found those guys are so inspiring, the work they're doing in that part of the world. It's not Europe. It's not so easy to find places in Europe. They're there, but it's not so common. And some countries can do it really easily because they have the natural resources. Places like Norway and Iceland, they're running on renewable energy. Norway, they've got so many trees. So it's kind of easy for them in some ways to do it. And other countries it's not, but even some of the newer places, I'm working in the Azores, and our new partners, it's a new hotel they've just built, and they've got loads of solar panels, but the solar panels is, because the weather there, it's not enough to power the hotel. But I didn't even ask them this when I went to visit, and then I've emailed them afterwards, and they were so passionate about it when I asked them. They said, well, we've done this, and then we're working with a green energy supplier, but we've made a really good deal with them that if we don't use any energy or we've got any extra energy, we're going to give it back to them so somebody else can have it. So I think that lots of people are thinking about this and the way they do things. And I think I made a lot of assumptions. I was trying to kind of Google, how the Azores are doing. Sometimes islands have quite a tough time because they have a limited resources. I was trying to Google what are they doing, and I just thought, why am I doing that? Why don't I just ask my partners? Because normally my relationship with the partners is I email them and say, okay, we're coming at this time. Can you book some horse riding? Where can we buy some bananas? Blah, blah, blah. But now during lockdown, I've had much more time and I've been doing this course and trying to understand things. So I've just been emailing and asking them. It's really deepened my knowledge and also my relationship with people. And I found it really inspiring. I have to say that here in the UK, we're not doing so well. It's harder here to do it than it is anywhere else. That's been a real eye-opener for me.
You mean like with the locations that you're doing your retreats in the UK?
Yeah, there's less options here. You know, you can get green energy. I've got a new location that's a complete off-grid, brilliant example of like an environmentally sustainable location. And I think more and more places like that are happening. But, you know, for a lot of people who've got, you know, big old manor houses or old cottages and stuff, they're not environmentally sustainable. And, you know, it's difficult to make that happen here. Come on, UK government, sort it out. What's it like in Germany?
Actually, I don't have so much experience. I mean, the places that I've been to so far, for example, also in Ibiza, that's something that's always been bothering me. I mean, Ibiza is an island that absolutely has a water problem, especially in August when the island is full with tourists. And then I ended up having retreats at houses and working in the kitchen. And I mean, you have to wash a lot of dishes and everything. But then seeing like that there is no way to put like these kind of little filters on the tap so that it reduces the amount of water that you use.
Yeah.
Everybody's telling you, be mindful about the water, but then those things just miss and you end up wasting so much water, and it always breaks my heart. And it's also this kind of conversation, okay, like, see, there is something, even if it's like this little thing that you could do. But in many places, the awareness is not there. So I feel it definitely takes the kind of initiative like on our side, creating a retreat to say, okay, these are the locations that we want to work with.
Exactly.
These are the places where we want to host the retreats. Yeah.
And I feel really passionate about that going forward. I think, you know, yogis are generally conscious beings and they care about the environment. And to go on a yoga retreat, like they should be asking those questions. Like, you know, what kind of place are we working? What impact is it having on the environment? Can I make a contribution when I get there?
And so you mentioned it briefly, and I mean, we haven't really gone into this, like the whole thing with the lockdown and the impact that it has on the whole travel industry, on each and one of us. And I mean, I don't want to get too much into what it actually does at the moment, but where do you see the chances, or where do you see this will take us and create new ways of travel? How will it impact and transform travel in the future?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've probably been to about 20 different webinars on that subject, and what I've noticed is as time has gone on, that those conversations have changed. And I think the honest answer is that we don't know. I think that before we went into this whole thing, there was a lot of concern about climate change. And I think that one of the things that has been consistent all the way through is that we stopped travelling and the environment got a rest. And the lack of planes in the air was a good thing. But then on the other side of it, people who are dependent on tourism have lost their entire income. So while no planes in the air was a good thing, no tourism is really tough for many, many communities. So there's been a lot of talk about when travel restarts, it should be a force for good. You know, that seems to be a real common theme, that you should be putting your money into your tourist pound or euro, whatever, should be going into the right place, and to take care on what you're booking and why. But you know, this is people in the travel industry that are saying this. Who knows?
Hi, it's me, your host Sascha Kaus. I'm super grateful that you are here and listen to our conversation. If you enjoy the show, Why not become a member and support Retreat Affairs? There's even more content than in this free episode. As a member, you will get access to the full interview. You will be able to read a transcript of the whole conversation and get links to everything that was mentioned throughout the show. But most importantly, you will help me to keep the podcast going. I started Retreat Affairs as a project that's close to my heart. I'm passionate about this work, but it also keeps me busy quite a lot. By supporting me, you will help me to dedicate more time to Retreat Affairs and still be able to pay my rent, pay for my yoga class, or have some delicious plant-based food between recording sessions. Every bit of support is super welcome. And if you feel the love, don't forget to share it with your friends. Thank you so much for your time, your interest, and your support. Let's head back to the interview. So do you have any kind of practices for yourself during retreat or even between retreats that help you to regain your energy or to maintain your energy, maintain your focus?
I would love to say that I have a really strong yoga practice, and I used to, which is why I set the whole thing up in the first place. But these days I am a bit of I've got a personal trainer and I train hard. Like, I'm in my 50s now and I need to be fit and strong. And I find when I'm not on retreat, I like to kind of do stuff that is not related to yoga and yoga retreats. So I train, 2 or 3 times a week with my trainer. Normally when there's not a lockdown, I do spinning classes. And then I would go to a yoga class maybe once a week. So I'm strong and I'm fit. And I need that for my travels and my journeys because they're very physical locations, a lot of them. And that's what keeps me going. And I eat well. I'm fairly healthy and fairly strong. Probably I am healthy and strong, not fairly. And that's the kind of, I feel like I need that physical strength to do my job. It feels like I need to be like managing my energy in that way by being strong. I used to be somebody who practiced yoga regularly and I did a lot of meditation, and I seem to have moved on in my life. I feel like it might come back, but I'm not doing that so much. And I partly think it's because I'm around it a lot for work. And so it almost feels like work when I'm doing it. But I'm always curious. I did an online yoga class last night. And I really enjoyed it. It was not my normal kind of practice. But I don't know. I dip in and out of lots of things, I think.
What would be a destination for yourself to travel to without being the host of a retreat, without organizing, but just going for yourself?
Oh, I'm really keen to go to Canada. I've never been. And I've been having a really good look around. There's some amazing places there. Generally speaking, I do have a passion for Scandi countries. So for me, staying in a log cabin in a quiet forest by a river would be just absolute heaven. I'm not so much of a beach person these days. I like mountains, rivers and cabins are my passion. Kind of got my eye on a few cabins in Canada, but I don't think I'm going to be going there anytime soon.
And we've talked a little bit about COVID, and you already said a little bit about what's coming up for you next with the retreat in the UK in August. But there's also like one special project that I've seen that you're doing for the NHS workers. Could you tell a little bit more about that?
Oh, yes. I decided when we were in the real hardcore part of the pandemic here in the UK, I felt there was a lot of pressure on our NHS, and a lot they had, they work so hard in not great conditions, and I just felt so much compassion. We do have some regular retreat guests who work for the NHS, and so I was in touch with them, and I knew what they were going through, and I really wanted to do something.
The NHS is the National Health Service,
yes,
for all of our listeners who don't know,
yes.
so all the healthcare workers.
Yes. So as we went through the pandemic, everyone was sick, went into NHS hospitals, and they were very overloaded in very difficult situations for a while. And so I basically decided, what can I do to help? What do? I run retreats. I would love to run a retreat for people like that for free, so they can come and we can look after them. So while they've been looking after everybody else and they've been taking care, can we offer them something where we take care of them as a thank you? So I contacted one of my favourite UK venues, and she was totally up for it, and she said, I'll just charge you costs and you can come. And then I asked my team, would you be up for donating your time? And they all said yes. So I basically put together a project where I have been fundraising for the costs, which are the accommodation costs and the food, and we're going to give them some wine. We feel like we don't need to make this a kind of a detox weekend. This needs to be a treat weekend. So I needed to raise £2,000 to run the entire retreat for 16 people. So I've been fundraising, and I'm nearly there. I think I've got £1,600 in the pot, so almost there. But I also opened it out and asked people, if you know someone that you think deserves this retreat, you can nominate them. And I've had about 150 nominations so far, and they are amazing nominations. I mean, the kindness, people have nominated their partners who they've been separate from because they couldn't put them at risk. They've been separated from their children. There's cleaners, bus drivers, shop workers. It's not just for the NHS, it's for essential workers, anyone who went above and beyond during the pandemic. And I only have 16 places, and I've got so many nominations. So what I've decided to do is, once I can put the retreat together, I'm going to offer it out and get those 16 people booked. And then for the other people, if I have any spare places on any other retreats, I'm going to offer them to come to that. So I'm just going to keep it going like a fund. So, because so many of them deserve it, and it's not time bound. So I have a feeling, especially in the next 6 months, not all my retreats are going to be full, because normally all my retreats sold out very easily. But I think now, post-pandemic, some people won't want to travel, or they may not be financially in the situation where they can travel. So there may be 1 or 2 spare places on retreats. So why not invite people to come along? So, I haven't started any of that process yet, but I'm really looking forward to it, and being able to make that offer to people.
So if our listeners like to donate to that amazing project, how could they do this? So?
Oh, that would be brilliant. It's on my website, which is reclaimyourself.co.uk, and it's got its own section called Gift Retreat. And if you just go to that section, you can find it on the homepage really easily. It's got a donate and a nominate button. So you can still continue to nominate people, and you can donate. Great, thank you.
Okay, so everybody out there, if you feel the call and if you want to donate to that project, we're going to put the link in the show notes and all the additional information. And maybe you can also contribute a little bit to giving back to all those people who have worked so hard during this crisis and who definitely need the chance to go on retreat. I think it's an amazing project, and great that you're doing that.
Thank you. Yeah, it feels good. I'm really looking forward to actually doing it and meeting these people. Having read all these nominations, some of them made me cry. They're so beautiful. And to actually meet those people, I'm really looking forward to it.
What is something else that you're really looking forward to within the next half year, say so?
During lockdown, it's been a learning period for me. So I think we talked about earlier, I did this transformational travel design course, and I've learned all these new skills. And I'm really, at the moment, I am in creative mode. So I'm putting together some new retreats for next year and beyond. I think at the moment we have to play the long game. And so patience is the key. I'm not very good at patience, but I've got I've had loads of good ideas in lockdown. After the initial shock of losing so much and feeling like everything kind of got burnt down to the ground and I had to start again, once I got to that place and started to think, clean slate, how would I do things differently? I talked about the responsible travel stuff, and I've been looking for venues in a completely different way. I've been looking for people who are experts at conservation and then approaching them and asking if I can create something with them. So I've got these new partners to work with, and I can't launch those retreats yet. We're slowly, but I've got at least 4 countries that we're not working with at the moment that I'm so excited about. I've just got these brilliant plans I'm co-creating with local partners in a completely different way. And I've got one particular project. I'm sort of being a bit mysterious because I can't launch any of it yet, but I've got this particular project that won't launch until 2022, but I'm putting it together now. That's going to, it's not exactly how I've done things before. It's wellness, but it's transformational travel, it's conservation. The yoga is a big part of it still, but there's more. And so all my creative energy is going into that stuff now. That's the big stuff that I'm feeling excited about. In the next 6 months, I am just looking forward to getting back on the road. I've been stuck in my flat in London for 4 months. I think I should be in Svalbard right now, and I've, cancelled that. I should have been in Mongolia in a couple of weeks' time, cancelled that. So I do love to travel. I like to do it well, and I love to meet people. I've been fantasizing about going to Iceland all summer. We've got a retreat there in October, and it's looking really promising that that's going to go ahead. Another COVID-free country, and they've managed things very well. And I've noticed that a lot of my partners who live in these beautiful places, their lockdown has been amazing. They're living in absolute paradise, and yes, they've had no customers, and that's very concerning. But while I've been stuck in my flat in London, they've been, skiing or in the hot springs or riding horses in the wilderness, and I'm like, I want to do that. So I'm really looking forward to being able to travel, to see the partners that I've been chatting to through all of this, and just to reconnect and run a retreat. I don't know what it's going to be like to run a retreat after this pandemic. What I can see from the emails I've been receiving in the last couple of weeks is people really want to do it. They really need something around wellness and togetherness and adventure.
Yeah, I totally hope that we will be able to come together with everybody soon again. I mean, there's also a lot of people that I have in different places around the world that I would really love to see again, give them a hug and come together, spend time together. And yeah, I also see that you definitely have a lot of interesting things coming up, and I'm super excited to hear more about them. And this gives me already a chance to say, like, I'm looking forward to have you back on the show at some point.
Oh, yes, please. I'd love to.
But before we close this up, is there anything that you would like to add? Is there anything that we haven't touched yet and that you want to get out there into the world and let people know?
The thing that I'm really passionate about at the moment is about responsible travel. And I think as we come out of this pandemic, there's been a lot of talk about a green recovery. And I think having spent lots of time working on this, responsible travel, yes, it's about protecting the planet, but it's also about how you work with people, how you interact with people, how you support people when you travel. And I'm just so passionate going forward, particularly in the yoga retreat world, that we all try our absolute best to travel responsibly and to just invite people to join me on this path of really looking at how you work and where you work and who you work with, and making sure you're making a positive contribution, not just to your yogi guests, but to the places and the people that you're working with, because I think that really is so important now. And it's we've got a chance, we've had a pause, we've got a chance to really review things and do very well. And I think if we all come together and do that in the yoga industry with yoga travel, it could be very powerful. I'd really like to see that as a big shift.
I feel that's an amazing opportunity, and that's also something that I'm really passionate about and that I want to give a platform here with the podcast, because I feel that's the chance that we have now to really reflect on how we travel. I still feel that travel in general is just an amazing opportunity to learn more about the world and to overcome certain beliefs that we have of other cultures by really getting in touch with them and really seeing different places, meeting other people. And with this kind of travel, going in small groups to smaller places, it really enables us to connect on a different level with local communities and support local communities, small businesses, individual people that really work hard to create something special, and they open their houses and their lives to invite others, and it all helps us to come together and grow. And it's totally different from the big travel industry. So I would really love to support that. And if there is a chance to inspire more people to make conscious decision on how they travel, instead of just abandoning all travel, then I feel this is a right step into the future.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I do. I'm very passionate about it. And I think the other thing I just wanted to say before we close is I think that what you're doing with this podcast is brilliant. As soon as you contacted me about it, I thought, oh my God, I wish I'd had that idea. You know, I'm really passionate about retreats. You're really passionate about retreats, but I don't really see anything like this out there. You know, there's lots of podcasts about yoga and wellness, but actually about yoga retreats, about wellness retreats and what we're doing. I can't wait to listen to who else you're interviewing and other chats from people all around the world that are as passionate as we are about this. It's such a brilliant initiative. So thank you for inviting me. It's a really cool thing.
Thank you so much, Jules. It was such a pleasure to talk to you, although and despite all the technical difficulties that we had, and that hopefully
we had a few.
Hopefully all your listeners out there don't get them in the final recording, so there will be a little bit of editing. But Jules, you've been so passionate, you've been so supportive, and it was just like amazing to have you here. I'm super, super grateful, and I'm looking forward to have you back, and I'm looking forward to see what's going on with your next adventures. And
brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you for being on the show.
Thanks. I've absolutely loved it. Thank you very much.
Dear friends, this was another episode of the Retreat Affairs podcast. This time with Jools Sampson, the founder and owner of Reclaim Yourself. You find Jools on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram at Reclaim Yourself, and on her website reclaimyourself.co.uk. You can head over to retreataffairs.com, where you find the show notes with links to everything that was mentioned in the podcast. But remember that this content is only available to our subscribers. If you like the podcast, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast platform. You can also head over to YouTube, where you find us too. Just hit that subscribe button and the notification bell, and you get a notification when the next episode is out. Just allow me to add this. Retreat Affairs is a project from the heart, and it would mean the world to me if you support me. Creating a weekly show is much more work than I had dared to think of, and with your support I will be able to keep the project alive and growing. You can support my work by going to retreataffairs.com, where you can subscribe and get exclusive content that will only be available to members. And please don't forget to share with me what you have liked and send me feedback on what I can do better. Just go to the Retreat Affairs Instagram page and follow us. That's @Retreat Affairs. Until next time, and thank you for your support, and thank you for listening.